Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? Your man Eric Wilson, still sitting here talking about some NFL free agency stuff that has happened. You know, I got the chance to speak to the playmaker, and I spoke to the Queen of Hoop yesterday, Miss Megan Price. I tried to get this guy on the phone, but he's too busy talking, you know, ASU and everything that's happening. So, of course, any chance that I get to bring the brother back in the building, you know I'm going to. ASU, he's a Sun Devil, Jerry. My man is in the building, the one, the only Mike Carrot-Tenuto. What's up, baby? How are you?
Man, you know me. I'm in the building for you anytime, but I am a Sun Devil, man. It's a phenomenal, it's a championship place to be, man. Sunny, it's beautiful.
Hey, man, it's a beautiful thing. I will say that, but I do have one question to ask you before we start talking about free agency.
All right.
How come? Because you know I was at the combine.
Yes.
And how come there was only one representative from Arizona State and 3 from that place down south? What was that about, man? What was that?
And, I thought there was 2. I thought Shamari Simmons was at the combine too for ASU.
I only saw one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scatterbo.
That was the only guy, because I was like,
yeah, I mean,
I was looking at the tracker. I was watching. I was like, wait, man, where's the Sun Devils at? What's going on?
I know, but no, Scatterbo. I mean, the kids. I mean, was dominant last year. He was forced to be the team's pump, pass, and kick champ because of all the injuries. And I mean, he literally threw some touchdowns last year. Threw a touchdown, obviously, against Texas in the Peach Bowl.
Right.
But this year, yeah, I mean, he dropped. Unfortunately, he got sick, but he dropped some weight coming in, but not strength. And man, it was a phenomenal ride. And whoever gets him, man, is going to get a steal. I know the whole running back thing, and there's some awesome running backs. I mean, there were some awesome running backs in the Big 12 alone, but just in this draft, you know, we're hitting free agency, but in this draft, I mean, there's actually running backs that I know don't have Mel Kiper fall out of his chair, but are very worth taking in the first and second round. I'm just gonna say, but yeah, Scatterbo, man. I mean, just
I will agree with you. I will agree with you based on what I saw there. I mean, the running back class. What I will tell you is, it's deep, man. Like, I was looking, and I've been putting this out. Like, I got the guide from being there. You had 31 running backs. And when I tell you that whole class really came up to show up and truly show out, that is exactly what they did. So we can talk about that, at a later time. But I mean, it's free agency. We have so much going on. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of things because I fully expected that Arizona, right in the old backyard, they would be possibly maybe making a few moves to see what's going on. And I've heard nothing yet. So I figured, and I'm sorry, I'm checking my phone here, just keeping up with the text and everything on X and what's going on in case we miss something while we're having this conversation. But let's talk about it from a standpoint, because when I was talking to you yesterday, you brought up a very interesting point. You said to me, I said, Mike, gotta do a free agency conversation. You were like, yeah, of course. He's like, but can we get a little insight into it? And I said, what do you mean? You said, take Seattle, for example. You said, with them releasing Geno and them letting DK Metcalf go, all right?
And
Pete Carroll is now, oh, yeah, and Lockett. Now, Pete Carroll's in with the Raiders. Like, is Seattle becoming a dumpster fire? And I was like, wow. I was like, that's really interesting. I didn't look at it that way. So speak on that to me, because I'm curious your mindset behind it.
Well, yeah. When you first asked me that, when you said insight, I was like, man, he thinks I got cobwebs or something, man. I see how he is now, but no. I mean, I looked at it and I was like, okay, so you have a solid running back in Kenneth Walker, again, running back, Kenneth Walker III. They got Zach Charbonnet. From the tight end position, the kid they took out of UCLA a few years ago, Jake Bobo, is solid. But like I said, I mean, you said DK Metcalf wanted to trade. He's out of town, headed to Pittsburgh. And then Tyler Lockett, they had released people were like, well, 10 years. I'm like, hello. I'm not calling, and you know how much I love Mike Evans there in your backyard, E. But I'm not calling Tyler Lockett Mike Evans. But when we talked Seattle throughout the last 2 years, like you talk Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, this is a guy that produced a ton. Him and DK Metcalf, a great pairing, right? But I look at it now and I'm like, I'm like, wow. So what are they doing? And then, of course, after we have that little conversation, I finish my workout, Eric. I get in my car. I'm getting ready to go and do my show. And I hear Sam Darnold, 3 years, $100 million is going to Seattle. I'm like, who's he throwing to though? So look, I have to digress. Not just because I'm in the Cardinals' backyard, like you said, but I have to digress and say maybe not a dumpster fire. You have an idea. You have a solid running back, which we know Sam Darnold last year with Aaron Jones and that backfield. Yes, you had Justin Jefferson. You had Jordan Addison. So my point was they didn't have a quarterback yet. Geno's gone. Are they trying to trade up for somebody in the draft? Okay, maybe. And then you sign Sam Darnold. I love the signing because, like I said, Sam Darnold, when he got out of the mess that is the Jets, and you get with a guy like Kevin O'Connell, you spend a year with Kyle Shanahan. It's kind of funny, E. Remember how I said, you go to San Francisco, you're a backup. He had Brock Purdy got banged up in his he came in the one game and then he started the next game last year. I'm like, didn't look too bad. Obviously, we get San Francisco had the healthy weapons last year. Then you go to Kevin O'Connell, disciple of obviously Sean McVay and that kind of, Kyle Shanahan. Oh, and people were like, well, Sam, this is a fluke. It had to be a fluke. And what did I say to you all year long? Look in the pocket. He's stepping up and making throws. That San Francisco game early in the season when they were healthy, man, they were pressuring him. He stepped up and made the throws. If that was that dumpster fire, the Jets, he would have been running for his life. And people were like, oh, Sam Darnold's terrible. But Seattle, I'll get back to Seattle, they sign him. 3 years, $100 million. Okay, but now who's he throwing the ball to? Like, you have a good running back. You have a pretty decent offensive line. I will say that Seattle, the O-line wasn't the issue. There isn't an issue. Geno didn't get crushed a lot like some other quarterbacks, obviously. Like Caleb Williams. The Bears obviously upgraded theirs. But okay, so now you have Sam Darnold. So now it's like, okay, well, in the draft now, I have to switch gears and not say they're a dumpster fire. Apologies to obviously my mom and your beautiful significant other of the Jets being a dumpster fire, and the Browns for all those years when they finally had draft, they're like, man, you and I kept saying they have all these draft picks. And then finally the Browns hit on quite a few defenders and it's like, And then they make the mistake in guaranteeing all the money to Deshaun Watson. But I'm like, okay, Seattle could become that. The 12s won't stand for that. So my apologies to the Seahawks. They obviously have a plan, but that's the big question right now. I like the Sam Darnold signing, but if Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf were still there, I'd love it a lot more. So
right. I mean, listen, you've got Jake Bobo, you've got Cody White, Jalen Darden, Jackson Smith,
and Jigba. Yeah, who did step up. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember his name because it's an Ohio State guy. I tend to want to forget those guys, as you know, and I know you agree with me on that. But
I do.
No, Smith and Jigma did step up. But again, you and I both know. I mean, Eagles, being an Eagles fan, I mean, AJ Brown, they drafted Devontae Smith when they traded for AJ Brown. Like when you can have that and you build your team the right way and you have the solid complement, whether it's a number one receiver, and even if your number two, as we know in this day and age, is a tight end. Now, do I think Jake Bobo could be that guy? Possibly, because again, tight end's a quarterback's best friend, as we all know. In a short passing game, you got to dump the ball off. You're getting pressured, but yeah, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So they do have. He did have a very solid season. But where's your other complimentary receiver? So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the draft. I think losing Geno. I mean, Pete Carroll's the one that wanted to bring him in, and we saw he turned his career around. I mean, in Seattle, they weren't.
And that was my next point to you, because they had the 8th pick in the okay, and I'm looking at some of these guys who were there. And of course, the guy that stands out to me that I've been preaching since Super Bowl has been the guy, Tez Johnson out of Oregon. Now listen,
yeah.
4.51. He's got a 37 on the vert, broad jump 10-11. I mean, he was in the Pac-12. You've seen this guy, okay?
Yes.
I'm truly convinced that he will be one of the top receivers taken off the board.
Oh.
If Seattle is looking to, at the wide receiver position,
right,
keep somebody close, bring a hometown kid. Now, he is only 5'10", but again, you build that in Seattle with Sam Darnold, with the Kenneth Walker III. Like we said, Jackson Smith, the Jigba, he actually stepped up. So now you've got a young core. And if you can build, like we've seen other teams do, then maybe we have something. I'm just curious because there were several guys there. Another guy, Jalen Milroe out of Alabama, was another guy that I was looking at, but he's a quarterback. And I feel that if he goes in the later rounds, which I fully expect him to, he might be a nice piece because we don't know what we're going to get with Sam Darnold just yet, and you've got to have some insurance. Listen, no disrespect to Sam Howell or Jared Hall, but I just don't. I mean, myself personally, I don't see it.
Right.
Another wide receiver, Mike, that people were high on. I personally was like, I like the guy, but I want to see more of him. Like, I want to see his pro day. Is Kobe Hudson from Central Florida.
Central Florida, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
4,
him.
5,
I saw
7.
him out here, obviously, this year because UCF came here.
Right.
RJ Harvey is the engine, the stud, one of another stud running backs that could make somebody like I'm talking about. Obviously, you could draft high. He kind of made that engine go. But yeah, that's a solid pick there. Look at you talking my college football for me.
Listen, I gotta learn.
People watch it.
I gotta learn sometime.
People are like, Eric knows his stuff. I'm not talking trash to him. He just knows I get excited about this college football stuff.
I mean, but there were a lot of wide receivers in this class, and I was like, okay, who were my true guys that you knew were going to make an instant impact day one? Right. But since you brought up, Mama Kara Tenuto's Jets, Aaron Rodgers is gone. Devontae Adams is gone. And so the question now becomes, with the number 7 pick, who do they look at? And I want to talk to you about that because Aaron Glenn, I think, is going to be that, the past 2 head coaches, not including interims, that the New York Jets have taken have been defensive-minded guys.
Right.
And we know what the defense is. We know what the defense can do.
Yeah.
It's a question of, can that offense actually make some noise? Yeah. So I want to know your thoughts with regard to, the Jets having the number 7 pick and just how they're going to build this offense.
Well, so before, yesterday when I'm, doing this stuff and I'm sitting there eating, after my wonderful sunny workout, and I'm like, holy crap. And news breaks that 2 years, I guess $40 million for Justin Fields is now a New York Jet. I thought he was going to be the starter in Pittsburgh. You got DK Metcalf. You have
George Pickens.
I know running the ball, last year towards the end, it wasn't, typical Steelers. I know it wasn't Najee Harris. I couldn't think of his name. Najee Harris, didn't have a bad year. And they were banged up a little bit. And Russell Wilson, Justin Fields wanted to be a full-time starter. Now, here's everything with the Jets. You ask this question, what they're going to do. You need to still – and Aaron Rodgers, look, as much as you and I talked about this too on the show, but as much as we can't stand Aaron Rodgers at times, down the stretch, he did play well. I know they weren't winning, but they were in games. They won a few. He played – I'm not going to say it was like MVP Aaron Rodgers, but he was playing ball's getting everybody, moving the ball. What's going to help Justin Fields? Well, what do we talk about? You have Breece Hall, but this offensive line, to me, if you're the Jets and people can say, best player available is one thing. Before they signed Justin Fields, my theory is this. My theory was, if I'm thinking quarterback, you need quarterback. You trade up to get Cam Ward. That was my thought. You're the Jets. You trade up to get Cam Ward. And again, nothing. I just think Cam Ward might fit a little bit better. And I don't think Dion said and look, Dion didn't pull the old, John Elway and Eli Manning of like, he didn't say what teams he didn't want Shedeur to play for. He said their team Shedeur is not playing for.
Right.
And that, hey, look, to each their own. We're in this day and age where you and I have seen it before. And I know you and I always cracked up about the Eli thing because we're like, oh yeah, I don't want to play for them. It's like, oh, I don't want to go make millions in the NFL. Cool. And I was
Clearly.
like, but again, it all worked out for all parties there. But I would have traded up for Cam Ward. But now my theory is, look, it is need-based, but you need to get, and I know it's a very, and again, the crazy thing is that a lot of the biggest depth, and I mean, you were at the combine, but I'm watching on TV and they're talking about the biggest depth is D-line, whether it's outside pass rushers, interior guys. Like this draft is absolutely loaded with that. So yeah, I mean, there's first round guys and they're talking grades, but you could get a dude. I mean, usually they'll say like the first 3 rounds, you get these D-line guys that go and you're like, okay. But I mean, from some of the stuff I saw on some sites, Eric, they were saying like you could probably get into the 5th round and you'll see somebody taking like, damn, that guy just went in the 5th round. Like
Mike, there were 73 D linemen at this year's draft. Okay. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have at least 7, 8 guys who I could tell you right now, if they went in the 2nd or 3rd round, I would not be surprised. That's how deep the D linemen are this year. And I mean, the one guy, of course, that I selfishly want because I saw what he did, if he should be so lucky to fall to 32, is James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. What I don't want to happen is with the 12th pick in the NFL draft, I do not want to hear this young man's name get called to your team. I will probably do one of these. Because if you line him up alongside Micah with that line that you currently have on defense, it will
they extended. I know it's not a Cowboys thing, but I told you I was hoping they would extend Odigizua, and they did extend.
Yeah, and they did. So, they did, and good for him. Listen, he's one of the few guys that I'm like, brother, I'm glad you got your money. Seriously. Yeah. But I'm just sitting there and I'm like, but to your point, yeah, this lineman class, good God.
But that's the problem with the Jets. Like I could see them taking another dominant one, and you're like, dude, they're gonna kill the quarterbacks in their division. Like that's the one. And then again, last year there were games. It's not like they were crazy blown out of games. Like the defense, I mean, yeah, there were times like towards the end, the defense is like, dude, what else can we do? Like,
right.
And again, they're not saying that publicly, but it's like, but you need to get, and we always say like teams that had the most success, like from the late 90s on, and you and I always talked about this, was when you always hear people say draft the best available player. Well, yeah, if the best available player is a quarterback and you have a quarterback, you're not drafting a quarterback. We get that. But like, yeah, you should go with your top need, but the Jets literally need the top, whether you get a left tackle, a top left tackle, or you go after, I thought the fact that the Chiefs were able to trade Thuney, or the Bears were able to get him, Ben Johnson pulling that off real quick. I parallel this to the Jets, because I thought if the Jets got any sniff that Thuney was available, man, put him at guard. And then you bring in somebody, you have somebody like Justin Fields, who, yes, we know can run. The Bears almost ruined him. He did look better in Pittsburgh. And then Russell Wilson came in, and Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. And hey, Mike Tomlin, again, you know me, ain't questioning Mike Tomlin until he ever has a losing season. I don't care if it's only just one game over 500. Nobody needs to question Mike Tomlin. But
thank you. Could you please tell Megan that? Because Megan and I had that conversation yesterday, and I was like, really? This is what we're going to do? I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying, Megan, but still. So I told her, I said, when we do have that conversation, I'm calling a lot of people to the front of the congregation. That's what I'm doing. And she one of them. So I'm glad. It's very rare in the offseason. We agreed on stuff. I'm calling. Yes. Don't worry about it.
You call me too, because I can't stand the Steelers, obviously. But the way they, again, to stay above 500, to go to make the playoffs, or have a winning season when you had a quarterback named Duck Hodges, playing some of the season for you. Like, come on, man, like phenomenal. But I would have thought the Pittsburgh would have re-signed Justin Fields. The Jets get him. Okay, that's good. I like that. So now you don't have to trade up and go crazy draft stock because like I said, I'm not saying they would have. I'm just saying in my GM mind, Eric, if I'm the Jets, look, solve the quarterback issue. Aaron Rodgers is gone. Aaron Glenn, hey, you want a fresh start? Cool. Right, wrong, or indifferent. Like I said, people personality-wise, whether you can't stand Aaron Rodgers or not, do I think he could have definitely earned another year? Sure. You sure up the offensive line, but if the Jets, to my point though, with Thuney, dude, this guy goes from guard to playing tackle, and people can say, well, I mean, offensive line, and a lot of people that know the game, like Eric, as you know, it's a total different mindset. He may have been at left guard, but you go to left tackle, and you did a hell of a job. So the Bears get that guy. I mean, if you were the Jets and you had a sniff, yeah, I get he went to the AFC, but it's not like trading a star running back or quarterback. And again, offensive lines, I know the trenches are very important. You know how I feel about that. But if the Jets got any sniff, man, you got to get in on that. You got to offer the Chiefs, okay, obviously, what's his name? Garrett Wilson's not going anywhere. We're not giving you a receiver because you got Patrick Mahomes. No, they could have figured something out. But I'm just saying, so the Bears get that, good for them. But the Jets, you need to get don't trade back, don't trade down. You need to get like I said, whether you go top guard, top tackle, and I feel bad, I forget his name, but I think they're good at they're solid at center. But you need to shore up that line, and that was the big issue with I mean, Aaron Rodgers. Everybody said 4 plays in. We know 2 years ago we heard that obviously that dialogue all year long because it was true. But I mean, the first 4 plays, and then even after that, Zach Wilson's trying to play. They were so bad at left tackle. It's one of those things where it's dude, what do you expect a quarterback to do? Everybody, I'm and that's why I always said to you, we love Patrick Mahomes, we love Joe Burrow, we love Josh Allen. And by the way, kudos to the Bills, because again, this is the second time in his career. Josh Allen got his extension last time. When did we hear about it? When it was over, and he was close to being up. But oh yeah, by the way, Josh Allen resigned. Josh Allen restructures Buffalo. He doesn't make a big deal out of Buffalo. Okay, let's keep going. But so the Jets need to go offensive line to wrap that. They need to go offensive line. And look, I would say the first 3 rounds, and I know it's going to be tempting to draft some of those guys on defense because again, if you add defensive depth to this, that's the scary thing. If they do that, they're just looking to okay, we're going to figure this O-line thing out. Maybe the guys haven't trying to get better, but dude, they were just terrible at tackle. And we saw it all. 2 years ago was really bad. This past year was a teeny bit better, but not much, man. Again,
but that's where I think and that's where I go back to what I say about Aaron Glenn being the guy that he is, being the defensive guy that he is. He may kind of lean that way. Let's hope for their sake, being the organization, they do focus on shoring up the front. So that way, Justin, we can truly see what we're going to get Justin going into his 3rd year. Before we get to, I want to talk of 49ers. And of course, I have to ask you about your team, even though it pains me to say it, but we're Super Bowl champs right now, so I'm okay.
Yes,
so how do you guys feel being in the neighborhood now that you have, speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, you guys got Josh Sweat and 4-year contract. You got a pass rusher, $76.4 million, 41 guaranteed. What's the vibe out there in Arizona bringing that type of pedigree, if you will, into that locker room?
I mean, look, Jonathan Gannon coming from there is awesome because you need that. It's one of those things where when you look at it, the Cardinals weren't bad on the defensive line, and the secondary probably was led by Budda Baker. But overall, I mean, they had questions at corner coming in. The secondary overall, I mean, was not the issue. It just wasn't. They got pressure, but you hear how I say that. Yeah, okay, they got some pressure, but we know it needs to be more consistent and disciplined and consistent. And Jonathan Gannon working with these dudes like that, I mean, man, I don't. For the Cardinals, man, that is huge. I mean, to spend the numbers you just said, Eric, 4 years, $76.4 million. So I mean, that's what 18 and a half,
19.1 a year.
19.1 a year. Yeah. Okay. And look, for the Cardinals to do that, I mean, Michael Bidwell, it's like, okay. I mean, 41 million guaranteed, and that's, because Michael Bidwell, again, never wasn't accused of being like cheap, but also like with, bonuses and years, because you and we always talk about like extending years out and you can get, mess with the cap that way. But dude, that is huge for this defensive line, because what do we just talk about? The Jets? The Jets can get pressure. Teams that can get pressure, like they're getting the pressure. So for the Cardinals, look, I mean, Kyler Murray, and you're asking about Sweat, but like, how is that going to help? Well, from even when Hassan Reddick was in Philly. I mean, Jonathan Gannon, it was like, dude, I mean, and granted, it was the whole D line, but dude went nuts in that kind of system. Sweat proved last year. And look, the Cardinals on the D line, I mean, there's some solid pieces there, but now you have a guy that you can literally kind of shift around and move. And people are going to be like, oh, and I'm not calling him Aaron Donald, as you know how much we love, not just me. We love Aaron, of course. Donald. But like, it's that Aaron Donald effect. Like, there's going to be really good guys. I mean, look, Sweat, you put him on the outside, like he can get around dudes, but can he play interior, play that stunt game interior? Yeah. I mean, you're not going to lock him up in the interior the whole time because you want that speed on the outside. So Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, and again, I like Steve Keim. I like how he ran drafts. And yeah, I think it was, maybe time to go because there were some things there. But what Monty Ossenfort has done from the beginning, it's like, okay, we're going to get this. We're going to bring in this guy. They re-signed Budda Baker, which when we were talking, because you kept saying last year, Mike, why are they letting Budda Baker go? When we started the season last year.
I was like, what are y'all doing?
Budda Baker really going to get he's not saying he kind of said he wants to get traded. He hinted towards it, but he didn't fully say it. But he's kind of fed up. I'm like, dude, you cannot lose. I mean, I love that kid because I've been watching him since he was at UW, playing in the pack when Washington had those secondaries. But look, if you can play and you're that safety, as like, can you come down on the box? Sure. But can you drop? Can you make sure guys are in the right spot? Can you play deep? Like Budda Baker can do that. You cannot lose that piece. And then it's like, great, now we got a rusher, but we lost this guy. So it's like, we're still in square one. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you bring those guys in and it's excitement for the safety, like, and I know, again, Super Bowl champs always, as we've talked about through the years, kind of get rated. I'm shocked that, and again, I see the money he got, and Philly's got to figure it out. And again, Howie knows what he's doing. But I was kind of shocked they didn't try to work something out with him. I
think because and this is how I feel. I really feel like they're trying to work on something to keep Slay, because you bought Vaughn back. You've got Reed, you've got Cooper, you've got these other pieces around. I think it was more about just finding a way to negotiate with Slay, because Bradbury's gone as well. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was just
Eric, this just broke. It says, according to a report, you said Darius Slay, and since our computers and the interweb spying on us, you said Darius Slay, and on I got a little notification thing from Google, and it said, according to a report from Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports, Pittsburgh has agreed to terms with cornerback Darius Slay. It said Tom Pelissero. He says only talking to the Steelers. Oh, Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network says reports that Slay is only talking to the Steelers, but hasn't agreed to anything yet. So sorry, it's only with the Steelers right now. But who knows? I mean, hey, they could get into money, and the Steelers see the money, or the Eagles see the money, and they're like, here you go, Mr. Slay.
yeah. You ain't got to go across the state. Y'all can stay right here. So, exactly. All right, I'm going to take a real solid break. So when I come back, I want to stay out west. I want to talk 49ers. And then, of course, I want to talk about your Cowboys because, listen, I'm going to give love to you right now because I know you have some things that you want to say directly to your squad. We'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Hi, my name is Tim Rose. I'm the president and COO of Dolphin Key Worldwide Transportation. Welcome to our new 25,000 square foot facility located in Miami, Florida. For over 25 years, Dolphin Key Transportation has been the choice for discerning travelers who use our services on the East Coast of Florida as well as the West Coast of Florida, and we look forward to servicing you.
All right, welcome back into the Sports Room. Your man, Eric Wilson, alongside my brother, Mike Caratenuto, ASU, Forks Up. He's a Sun Devil, Jerry. So let's stay out west. Let's talk about the 49ers, a team that has been to the Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, but it seems like this team has kind of taken some steps back over the last 2-3 seasons. So I want to ask you with free agency. I mean, first off, Mike, and I know you heard this because you were watching, sitting in Lucas Oil and watching the deal go down with Debo, for me, was like a fly on the wall, because I'm sitting there, right? And the guy who was like 3 or 4 seats away from me had a pair of binoculars. When Ian Rappaport broke the news that Debo was coming to Washington, I looked up to this guy's binoculars, and it was like the Washington scouts and GMs were sitting in like this booth right here. And then about 4 booths over, suites, whatever, was Washington.
Yeah.
Mike, we looked into the Washington suite and there was nobody in there, or they were coming back into their suite to watch the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers at the 2025 Combine. It was one of those instances where I was like, oh, y'all just went out back on the concession area and made that deal and then came back in. Like it was, I don't know if it was that simple, but that's how it appeared when you're sitting in Lucas Oil watching this thing go down.
Right.
And I was like, really? So speaking of San Francisco, Debo is gone. Mike, the first thing we were all talking about, me, Cortland from the halftime show with Cortland Griffin and others, were like, uh-oh, Brandon's next. Like, I was trying to like text you like, dog, is Brandon leaving San Francisco as well and coming to Washington? What about it with San Fran?
Yeah, no, with Ayuk though, I mean, the tough part is they just extended them last year. So yeah, you can trade, but you got to find a partner that obviously wants to take that can take that contract. And yes, I mean, we know the cap went up. There's quite a few that did. I mean, look, Ayuk getting hurt sucks because we all know, again, this day and age, the way they rehab, like they can get it done. But it's always that second year back. So I think the Niners could do it. I mean, look, considering that they just the Niners, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but again, now, I would have thought maybe Pittsburgh would have tried to take that on, because obviously we talked about last year, they were heavy in talks with before San Francisco extended them and, gave him that deal, which I'm not saying he didn't earn. Again, yes, the Sun Devil side of me is like, oh, they should have given it to him. Well, they should have let him go to Dallas, but not San Francisco. No, but no, that's the thing. Like he earned that extension, and we saw what, how Ayuk's grown in this time, and just that receiver he is next to Debo. It's like him and Debo. And I said this to you last year, and I know, you enjoyed when Ray and I were going back and forth saying he's like 1 and 1A, because like Debo is like that guy when healthy. Now the Niners did get banged up. We saw that. They didn't want to have to re-extend Debo if they're going to, Brock Purdy. Again, Justin Fields got $20 million. Sam Darnold got $30 million. I think Purdy, look, the dude can play quarterback. I don't care if he's the last pick. You got it. You still, like you always said, you said it first. I'll give you credit. Not that I didn't think it, but you always said it first. I remember when we first started doing shows, like quarterback still got to get the ball there, right? Quarterback's got to make the plays. Like if he ain't getting the ball there or running the offense smoothly, calling audible, I remember saying to you years ago, there's always a right time to call an audible, and there's a time that it's bad because the team baited you into calling an audible and it worked out for the defense. But that's the thing that I look at with the Niners. But with Brandon Ayuk, would somebody, I think, can they take that money? Sure. Okay, to our point about Seattle before, I think Seattle would be a great point, but there's no way. Look, you can be cocky as you want. Teams are not going to trade somebody in division. They are not trading somebody in division.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but we've seen it happen. Okay, let's not. Plenty of times, and let's exclude the whole Saquon situation. Excluding the Saquon situation,
right? Well,
things have happened.
But yes,
right. He was released. But we've seen it, because you know what's so funny? I asked that question to Playmaker on yesterday. I said, would Cooper Kupp go to San Francisco? And he was like, only if he gets released. That's the only way.
Yeah, 100%.
Cooper Kupp is going.
Look, helping somebody else in your conference. I mean, it's always tough when they say, "Oh, well, they wouldn't trade him within the conference." I always kind of scoffed at that. I'm with you. I kind of scoffed at that one throughout the years, just because a conference is one thing, but in your division, you got to see that person twice a year. And yeah, it's 2 games. But if you missed the playoffs by 1 game because they just lit you up and said, "Okay, well, cool, man, have a good time. I'm going to crush you."
I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. But for Ayuk, and then look, they were talking about because the 49ers or not the 49ers, the Chargers obviously released Joey Bosa, and they're like, well, hey, he can stay in California, play with his brother Nick. Like the money would have to be right. And Joey Bosa obviously made a ton of money. And yeah, he's missed 25 games, I think, the last few years total, with injury. But last year under Harbaugh, I mean, you think if you get him to say 25 to 30, maybe 35 snaps a game with what they still have on the D line in San Francisco, I wouldn't be happy about it because I think, again, less can turn into more with it. But with Ayuk, but yeah, look, I think Ayuk stays. But you're asking me, so a percentage, I would say 85% Ayuk stays just because, again, the money in the contract, it just depends. But
is he ready to be a number one, Mike? Let's ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, look, you have. I mean, look, yes, skill wise, he is definitely that number one receiver. Speed wise, again, coming off the injury, we'll see because usually, like we always said, the second year, not that people don't see not that he's going to lose speed, but it's always that second year where we always see the strength and everything, and surgeons have talked about that. Players, coaches, trainers, everybody's talked about that. Like some injuries, it just depends on what it is. But when it's the ACL, when it's the Achilles, it's always that second year. Any sport is like you always see like, okay, now they're kind of back to like, wow, this like not everybody can be a freak like Adrian Peterson, like you and I said throughout the
Very
years.
true.
That dude 9 months and he came back and it's like 9.5 months and it's like, yeah, I didn't play the preseason, but he never did. Who cares? And then he comes back and he's just trucking dudes and it's like, dude, you tore your ACL like the beginning of December. Like that's ridiculous. Like, so yeah, outside of the freaks like that, but like Ayuk is a number one receiver to me, the speed, the way he gets downfield. But what makes him even more of a number one with that offense, like I will, break my arm to pat my back when I got that one pick right in our draft show that year saying Brandon Ayuk is a Kyle Shanahan receiver. Kyle Shanahan played receiver, Brandon Ayuk in that system. They had him. They traded out of the pick, and then they still picked him in the first round with the later pick because people were like, "Oh, Ayuk is." It's like, okay, I'm glad you didn't watch. But you get a healthy McCaffrey obviously in the season, and obviously George Kittle. I mean, I think he missed like one game maybe last year, maybe two, but George Kittle wasn't out a ton. But you have Kittle, you have McCaffrey. You put Ayuk there. And yeah, okay, no Debo. That does make it different. But, I mean, Eric, we were saying this last year. I mean, as for an offensive guy that can scheme and that gets it, when you can run the ball and you have whoever the backup running back is in San Francisco, Eric, oh, hey, by the way, they'll rush for 125, 30 yards in their first game and then stay around 100 yards the rest of the games just because it's some fourth-string running back. And Kyle Shanahan has figured out, well, these dudes can run the ball. And guess what? We're gonna throw the ball, but we're gonna push it down their throat. So, look, if Brendan Ayuk can come back gradually, and again, it happened in the middle of the season. So by you figure by training camp and by the beginning of the season, like he should be good, obviously to play, and you go through all that. But with McCaffrey, with Kittle, with whoever they get in the draft. Oh, Ricky Pearsall, former Sun Devil, Florida Gator, but still Ricky Pearsall. I mean, he got shot last year, but you saw him come in and actually, yeah. I mean, Purdy was like, okay, this kid's getting open. So now you have another weapon, and it's insane to think like they stay healthy. Yeah, and I think they'll be in a little more battles without Debo. I mean, I'm not happy where he ended up, as I know you and I can at least agree on something. At least
I'm not, because now you got Terry McLaurin on one side, and I'm going to have this conversation later this week with someone who is a Washington Commanders journalist. I'm going to have this conversation like, okay, they got Laramie Tunsil, who they traded for. They got Debo Samuels. They signed Javon Kinlaw. They re-signed Bobby Wagner. Of course, they got my heart, Zach Ertz, who I still love. And they re-signed another tight end in John Bates. And it's like, okay, we know what Washington's doing. So twice a year now.
They gave you guys Jahan Dotson. Like, and that guy,
I know.
A solid number two. Like, I mean, could almost be a one, but it just depends on the system. But like Jahan Dotson, like, okay, we're going to give this up and we're still going to get to the NFC Championship. Now you guys whooped them, which, again, that was like rooting for like vomit or I don't know.
The lesser of two evils. I know, Mike. I get it.
Much. But
listen, I met Jaden Daniels in New Orleans, shook his hand, told the brother, hey, you're a generational talent. It just sucks. I got to play you twice a year. Like, I'm like, in this, and now it's like the floodgates have opened, and here is Washington. I mean, first off, shout out to their organization for finally getting it right. Because for how many years, Mike, between Washington and the Giants, were you and I sitting here saying it's a 2-horse race between me and you? That's what it is. It's either going to be Philly or it's going to be Dallas. We ain't worried about the Giants. We ain't worried about Washington. Guess what? Daniel Snyder, little brother. Little brother's come up now and said, okay, look what we fitting to do.
Yeah, it's crazy because, and so wait, I got to ask you this, this very tough question. What makes you want to vomit more? If the fact that the Washington hired Dan Quinn, but if he would have stayed in Dallas as the head coach, what would have made you more sick? And obviously Dallas playing the way Washington did, what makes you more sick?
Oh, it makes me more sick when Dallas does well.
Okay, I figured you were going to stay consistent. I just wanted to make sure.
No, it makes me more sick when your football team, who we are going to talk about right now, when your football team down there in Texas, not named the Texans, does well, like I break out the bottle because I'm going to need something. Okay, the 12-5 seasons that you had, I was like, this is painful. I have said this since we've known each other and even before that. I do not care if, as a 17-game season now, I don't care if Philadelphia goes 2-15. As long as those 2 wins are against Dallas, I'd consider that a moral victory. That's how bad your team sticks in my craw. Okay, and I hate the fact that Sean Lee and Micah Parsons were dominant and are dominant at their respective position playing for that team. I understand that blue and gray and white looks good on them, but not on the professional level. Stick to the college level, okay? The guys that I have seen, and I have them marked. Mike, I'm telling you, look at this. I'm telling you, I got Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sorry I couldn't stay for Sunday O-line, guys. I apologize. I have specific players who, when Dallas is up, I don't care who the best available is. I'm looking at, please don't take this person. That's what I don't want. Because I like these guys.
You say that because you inevitably have agreed with me. Jerry Jones, as much as, he again, phenomenal owner, business guy, turned the Cowboys into the $10 billion franchise. And yes, for a while, I mean, signed free agents, signed players that were right. But their scouts and their drafting, even since way back, I mean, Jimmy Johnson is the head coach, but the scouting department since Jimmy Johnson, and even look, I mean, Tom Landry obviously had a stretch there for a while. Towards the end, it was a little tough, but everybody forgets, like, and again, I mean, younger kids, but of our generation, Eric, people forget, like, Tom Landry and Tex Schramm drafted Michael Irvin. Like, they're like, oh yeah, this guy, this is a receiver. Like, they drafted him. Yes, Jimmy Johnson was there the next year, and that probably made Michael Irvin obviously happy, but they drafted Michael Irvin. There were some guys in the line, and there were some guys. I mean, Jimmy Johnson kind of clean house, but there were some guys that stayed there, and it's like, okay. But look, the scouting department there. When you say that's my point, you say that because they have done a very good job. Obviously, offensive line talent, defense, like you're saying, guys fell to them. You see. And as much as I do love CeeDee Lamb, as you know, even though he big-timed us on the red carpet, that's one demerit for him. Even though he big-timed us, that he said hello, but he said, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to run inside." We're like, that hurts, man. That hurts.
Boy, my boy just wanted a picture, man. Can you give Mike? Mike just wanted a picture.
I want a picture, a little interview. Brian Dawkins talked to you. I walked up towards the end. You talking to Brian Dawkins? Like, oh man, it's a pleasure to meet you. I go, yeah, he knows. He knows I think your money, even though you played for a disgusting team.
Whatever.
And when he was laughing, he goes, "Oh, Cowboys fan." I go, "But come on." But no, but Brian Dawkins is awesome. But no, that's the thing with they've drafted well, and then when now you have to re-sign these guys, and they talked about it. I mean, it sucks at Zach Martin. I get it; he got banged up, and you're a what, a 7.
Hey, Mike, did I tell you that I met him?
Zach Martin?
When I was in New Orleans, I didn't tell you that.
No, I didn't realize he was there.
Yes. I got to find the picture. I got to find the picture. I think I have it. I have to find it. But I have a picture of your guy, Zach Martin. I actually met him. I'm sorry. Awesome. I knew something I was forgetting to tell you. We talked. I was like, something I keep forgetting to tell Mike.
All the crazy stuff was going on. So glad I was stuck here in Phoenix. It was awesome. Yay for me. Could have met Zach Martin. But anyway, I'm smiling. Onward and upward. but no, I mean, look, they have drafted.
All
well.
right, so let's talk about your team. But seriously, if you're Dallas, like, what are you guys going to do? Seriously, like, what needs to happen? What is going to happen? I'm giving you the floor on this one because it's your team, but I need to know, what's Dallas going to do? Free agency, draft, what?
Yeah, I mean, look, there are guys that are, the quarterbacks, obviously they weren't going to go after a quarterback. I know they said Trey Lance is, probably going to be gone. I would have kept Trey Lance over Cooper Rush as much as, look, Cooper Rush did a good job. Again, with that line in front of him before, he's done a good job. But, like, for somebody that can throw a decent ball, but, like, Eric, you and I could pick him off, man. And this is what drives me crazy. People say, like I always say, they think I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, which I don't. They say, you say the NFL, this and that. But, dude, as a quarterback, if I stare you down, you could be the best receiver, and I fire the ball to you. But if I'm staring you down, there's going to be 2 bodies, maybe 3 that are going to be like, oh, thank you, because I just looked at you the whole time and threw the ball there. Like, I would have worked with, I would have kept Trey Lance, but I know Stephen Jones said, probably be released. Who knows what they do there? But look, they got Odighizuwa was signed, which from the beginning, even when Dan Quinn was there, when Dan Quinn's like, oh, I love this, this kid, when they drafted him, it's like, okay, but a little bit undersized. And again, I always find it hilarious calling somebody like 275, 280 pounds. That's like 6'2", 6'3", undersized. No, undersized, not small. I'm like,
undersized. You're right. Yes.
I get you're saying football, but still, dude, at that weight and height, like, no, they're not undersized. Like, anyway, but that being said, I mean, look, Micah Parsons got banged up last year, and I think obviously towards the end they slow rolled bringing him back a few weeks later because it's like, well, we're not going anywhere. And yet Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are running for a lot of yards. So can't get them this year, E. But, look, that's the thing. I think now you need to find that guy. And I'm sure they have a few. But to see what Zach Martin does. I mean, look, Tyler Smith is playing left tackle. And I think, another T. Smith. But I think he did a solid job, especially when, obviously Martin was next to him. Oh, no, Martin was at right guard. But, like, there are times Martin played left guard, but like Tyler Smith, I think at left tackle, you have Guyton that I think you could put at, that would be very solid at right tackle, the kid out of Oklahoma. I mean, some boneheaded mistakes, but whatever, rookie lineman, but you live with it because, like, that's the thing. So now you need to fill in that guard spot. I think you're very solid. They're solid at center. Look, the defensive line, and you've said this. I mean, yeah, Micah Parsons has been good, and there were stints 2 seasons ago where it's like, okay, they're 12-5 again, and like the D did good. And I mean, week 1, granted, I know it was Cleveland, but still, I mean, I know you weren't happy after week 1. It's like, I don't want to overreact, but if this defense looks this good all year, you're going to be. You said you would be fine because I mean, but Deron Bland came back late, so now you got Trayvon Diggs, who came off the injury and was back last year, which is good to see. And now you have Deron Bland, who was injured, and they waited, but he came back. You get those 2 back at corner. To me, I mean, safety. If you stay young, we'll see what they do because I haven't. Not that they have. I'm sure they've talked about it in the building, but it hasn't been really kind of mentioned a lot. But they swung at a few guys in the middle that have not worked out, D line wise, I should say. Odighizuwa, yeah, I mean, he's situational. You let those guys, when Dan Quinn went, you let all those guys walk to Washington. I mean, again, as you and I always say, you can't re-sign everybody, but there's no reason you let 3 guys and 2 of them, you're like, come on, man. Like, what are you doing in Dallas? You're just letting Dan Quinn take, I mean, granted, they were free agents and, we're all in.
I think that's the issue that I have sometimes with what certain teams and certain organizations do, because it's like we hear one thing and I think it's just talk. I think it's just, let's put something out so that people don't think we're not doing anything. But in our minds, we keep the game plan here and then we just turn it on them. And this is the direction we're going.
It's so funny you say that. It's so funny you say that because remember, like, so Super Bowl, like, I mean, what that Friday and Saturday media wrote, like, it came out Friday, but Jerry Jones he didn't say it obviously, but it starts coming up. And it came out of Dallas, like, would the Cowboys seriously contemplating trading Micah Parsons. I'm
Right.
like, you better get 5 number ones for that. I don't care what anybody says. Like, they're like, oh, that's insane. No, for the only defensive player that put up that was in Mr. Taylor's neighborhood, as you and I both know, LT, Lawrence Taylor, the real LT.
Right.
For the only defensive player in those years to be sitting in Mr. Taylor's neighborhood. Yeah, if I'm the GM, if I was a GM of the Cowboys, but I'm just saying, if I'm a GM, I'm like, that's going to cost you 5 number ones or 4 ones in a second, because this dude's going to sit here and break. I mean, look, you stay healthy. You put him in the Dan Quinn show, like, okay, move him around. Like, then you got, like, it's just they weren't getting consistent pressure. So look, the fact that the D line is so deep, and I know you know what, you're probably going to end up throwing your book once or twice, because they need to find that guard, which again, offensive line wise, ever since again Landry, but I mean ever since I was young, but like Jimmy Johnson, like talking to you all those years ago in LA, which God, I'm still bummed I didn't shut my mouth and wait till the bill got there to tell you I love the Cowboys. Dang it.
Okay, Mike, I think we're past that. I honestly believe, I think you and I are past that. We have bought meals for each other now, man.
Exactly.
Let it go.
But it's one of the funniest stories ever. I'm
Let
like,
it
man, I don't
go.
think anybody ever said it's like, oh, I was going to get you dinner, but yeah, he looked at the server, goes, yep, you can split it. That was awesome. But no, but I mean,
How have we not made that a commercial? That should be like a commercial. I mean, like, you know.
that would be that would be a very, we could tie that into something. That would be a very good commercial.
Yes.
But I will say this: if they go, you go guard, you go D line, they're still talking about another receiver. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull off. And you know, people are saying, oh well, you know, Metcalf. I mean, the money he wants, you're not paying CeeDee Lamb and Metcalf. Like, you're not gonna have 2 receivers taking up that much of the cap. I mean, CeeDee Lamb just restructured, Dak restructured. Micah Parsons is going to get his money. Any fool that thinks they're trading, like, again, unless you called me up, well, if it was the Eagles, I'd be like, it wouldn't happen. But if a team calls me up and they're like, yeah, we want, what is it going to take for Micah? And I'm like, not available. And they're like, how about 4 number ones and a 2? I'd be like, what'd you just say? I'm recording this call for quality purposes. 4 number ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, but I mean, look, you said it before. I mean, the what he can do with his hand in the dirt as a guy that played, you know, stand-up linebacker, and he, you know, sometimes he'll be down, but the rush he gets, and you look at him and you're like, man, he's just like, why does it look like he gets there easy? And as we always said, the greats do, man. It's like, dude, those guys are big. He's just like pushing them back. It's like, well, obviously he's no weakling, or he wouldn't be there. But they need to hit on the interior defensive line. That's look, whether it's in the draft and, you know, you see maybe if someone's available, I mean, trade wise, but I mean, D line and free agency hasn't been, I mean, well, Sweat coming here. I mean, he was a free agent. I didn't think he was going to Dallas. But if you know what they want to offer, but look, I will say this, as much as Jerry Jones drives people crazy, and like I've said to you for years, scouting department, and, you know, Jerry Jones, yes, making the final decision, they have drafted very well. I mean, when you know, we always say it's funny, because I always thought it's funny when people put out draft grades right after the draft saying, well, with what, you know, with what they did, okay, and maybe what they needed is A is a B. But when you look at that, it's like you can look at, like, you know, they always say 2 to 3 years, like at least 2 full years from when they got drafted, how this team did. The Cowboys, I mean, look, if you're going to be if you're going to be contending, it's like, yeah, everybody wants an A, but if you're a solid B to B plus team, then look, man, sometimes picks don't hit. Everybody knows that's not an exact science, but they've done that good job, especially with the offensive line. Like, and then when obviously Parcells came there, I was like, okay, I'm going to load the cabinets back up. But Jerry Jones, like, that's the frustrating part, because, you know, how he wrote, like, look, Carson Wentz, whether it was an attitude thing, and, you know, they're like, okay, we're going to draft, you know, Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round. I was like, I told you, as much as I couldn't stand your team, I like the pick. I like what Jalen Hurts did. He went to Oklahoma. Lincoln Riley, you know, love him, hate him at USC, or not right now, the way those fans are. But dude's a quarterback whisperer, man. Like,
oh yeah, if you go from him to Kevin O'Connell, you're gonna have a lot of success as a quarterback on the college and professional level. So I definitely hear you on that. I'm just of the mindset. Go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'm gonna close.
I was just gonna say that, but like for the Cowboys too, and offensively, like, you know, they talk about that number 2 receiver. I was just saying Cooper Kupp, like, I mean, what are the Rams going to want? Like, yeah, if you're willing to get rid of a guy, and to our point earlier, like we were saying, like, very rarely in the division, but like if you're willing to get rid of a guy and you get, everybody's got to give to get, we'll see what happens. But I mean, I think that could be very interesting. But
all right, so let me ask you really quick. We saw that Debo went for a 5th round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is crazy
So,
to me. But coming off injury.
If we put those two guys on the same level, just for argument's sake, is Dallas going to pursue that and say, okay,
I mean,
San Fran got a 5 for Debo. Would the Rams give us a 5 for Cooper? Or would Dallas be willing to give a 5 for Cooper? Would that make sense to you if you saw Cooper Kupp go to Dallas for a 5th round pick?
I would say unequivocally yes. I mean, the only thing I would objectively say back to you if I'm the Rams, I just say, well, he's a Triple Crown winner, but money wise, we can't, as we can't re-sign everybody, but we'll take a 4th round pick. But yeah, if it was the same deal,
okay, 4th round. So you're saying Cooper Kupp for a 4th round.
Ask for a 4th round pick. No, I'm saying they would say a 4th round pick. Dallas would be like, well, Debo's done just as much. Like if you get Cooper Kupp to answer your question for a 5th round pick, I mean, for a fly, like that's not even a flyer. We know that dude can straight out ball. And you have and plus, because again, like we were saying with Seattle earlier, who's the receiver on the other side? Like you have CeeDee Lamb on the other side. You do have Ferguson at tight end. And again, he's grown. I mean, I know what's his name, Pendershot. He's and he's gotten as a other tight end, but now it's the whole running back, game there too. Like I like Dowdle. You didn't give him the ball enough, and then when the injury started happening, the O-line was kind of like, okay. But yeah, for a 5th round pick for Cooper Kupp, if I'm
or we'll even go 4th, If 4th,
I'm just saying
Dallas offers.
I think the Rams would ask for a 4th because of what Cooper Kupp has done, but I don't think the Cowboys would be like, well, Debo got a 5th, so good luck getting a 4th from anybody else. I mean, but to your question, I mean, I think you just put them on hold for a little, say, okay, we'll call you back, and you set a timer for, say like 12 and a half minutes. And then you say, hey, we'll call you back within 15 minutes. You set the timer for 12 and a half, said, okay, 5th round pick is good. Or you probably don't even hang up the phone and say, yep, send us the paperwork. 5th round. You got our 5th round.
Okay. I was just curious. All right, look, we got about 2 minutes to ride out of here before we get out of here, man. It is great seeing you. I am glad that things are beginning to progress out there, my brother. Look, love what you do. Pitchfork Lunch. You've been doing it now for, listen, you're up to episode almost 2 seasons. You're almost up to episode 300 already. I mean,
yeah, we're at 12, I think 135, 36. Yeah, 24 away. Or 14 away. 14 away.
14 away. So that's what I mean. Like, bro, keep doing your thing, man. Let's see where your boy Scatterbo, is that his name?
Yeah, Cam Scatterbo. Like, dude, if look, I know because Coach Dillingham, obviously being a local guy, I mean, he's an ASU alum, but he grew up here, and he said, now we just get the Cardinals to take him. But look, I mean, he won't go first day, but with everything he can do, like, there are 300 dudes that were trying to tackle him that he trucked. Like, that's what I say to people. We get, and you and I have said for years, like, it's everybody, a lot of people said it for years. It's a glorified, track meet, basically. You're in shorts and T-shirts, and you're doing, and again, showing off your athleticism is huge. But you watch the film and you watch a dude that's, about 210 pounds, trucking dudes that are 270, hitting defensive linemen, lowering the shoulder, keeping the balance. Yeah, dude, somebody's going to get a diamond, man. It'll be and to my, disgust, Howie will be like, you know what? He'd be a good pick for us in the 4th round or something. The Eagles just take him, and I'd have to, it'd be like that whole Penn State thing for you in Dallas. But I just don't want him to end up in Washington. All I can say is I
listen. If there's one thing we can agree on, Washington, y'all don't had enough. Come your way right now. Y'all need to just pump the brakes for a minute, because I understand the position you're in and trying to capitalize on a situation, seeing what you saw last year with the talent that you have. Mm-hmm. You still got to contend with us, and I'll even dare I say you still have to contend with that man right there and his squad twice a year. Please don't make me become that guy that actually cheers for them because I need them to win in order for my team to be successful. I don't want to do that. But anyhow, Mike, much love to your brother. Hey, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I will holler at you. Everybody stay blessed. Sports Arena, hey, we out.